This is Keyed In with Max and Brent, unlocking the minds of the industry's top real estate professionals. And now, here are your hosts, Max Rabin and Brent Jackson.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Keyed In podcast. I'm Max Rabin.
And I'm Brent Jackson.
So today, I feel awesome about our guest today, by the way.
Excited.
Really excited. This is Mark Wellborn. He is the editor of UrbanTurf, co-founder of UrbanTurf. UrbanTurf is, for our local listeners, I'm sure you already know, this is one of our most important real estate publications.
The most important.
Like literally. They give us all the best local real estate news, like immediately, updates on what developments are happening, stats, everything. And it's sort of like a daily check-in for me. I don't know about, I mean, you too, I'm sure.
I'm on there every day. And anytime I have a client that says, hey, where do I go to look up new condo listings or new information about a neighborhood, I'm always like, go to UrbanTurf.
Always go to UrbanTurf. Or I just send them a bunch of links from UrbanTurf and it's all there.
Exactly.
So welcome to the show, Mark. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So tell us about like the beginnings of how you got into doing this. I mean, first of all, you're from DC. That's important.
Yep, I'm from DC. I grew up in Northwest, went to school here, and then went away for college and moved to New York. And that's kind of where the idea for UrbanTurf came from.
Right on.
So by the way, thanks you guys for having me on. I've listened to two podcasts that you guys have done and they've been great. So very happy to be here. Yeah. So the idea for UrbanTurf, I moved to New York in 2002 and for about 3 years I was working for a law firm. Thought I wanted to be a lawyer, but was doing a lot of writing during that time. And then ultimately decided I did not want to pursue law and tried to get into journalism, but it's tough to get into journalism if you have no experience. And so I ultimately decided to go back to graduate school for journalism at Columbia. And about halfway through that school, it's only an 18-month program. About halfway through that, I got a job working for the New York Observer, which is a small weekly paper, kind of best known for two things. One is it's kind of the fictional paper. It's the paper that Carrie Bradshaw from Sex and the City wrote her column for. And then it was purchased by our former presidential son-in-law, Jared Kushner.
I remember reading about this, yes.
Yeah. So he bought the paper when he was 26, and I was working there. I worked there for another 4 months after he bought the paper. At any rate, I'm working there and I'm writing about real estate in New York, but I remember going to grad school and I didn't want to do what a lot of people wanted to do, which is go write for the Washington Post or write for the New York Times. I wanted to start my own business, but I didn't really know what that was. So halfway through working, I'd been working at New York Observer for about 4 months when I met my partner, Will Smith, at a barbecue. And we had this idea for coming up with hyperlocal real estate sites. And we were both from DC and we talked about it for about 2 hours. And, you have those conversations and you never think they're going to, you're going to hear from the person again. A month later, I got an email and he said, do you want to do this? And so I think that was July 2008. We decided to start doing it and got things off the ground about 2 months later.
Were you guys up in New York when you went to this barbecue?
Yeah, so I was living in Brooklyn at the time. He was visiting. He had kind of been a serial entrepreneur since graduating from college, and we were in New York at the time. And then I started UrbanTurf, and I was in New York for 6 months, kind of trying to write articles about DC real estate from 250 miles away.
Why DC versus New York City? I mean, to me, New York City is like the epicenter of the world.
Yeah, I mean, that's an excellent question. New York was already saturated with a lot of real estate publications. New York and I guess I would say San Francisco were two of the major cities where, sites like Curbed, The Real Deal started in New York. New York Observer had a big, albeit commercial real estate section, New York Times. So we didn't really feel like we could get a foot in the door there. And DC at the time had Washington Post real estate section, and I guess the Washington Business Journal. So we felt like there was an opportunity for us, specifically from the residential side of things.
Also, the market, growing exponentially around, and then I guess there was, before you guys, there was really nothing else like that. I mean, while you have Washington Business Journal, right? Like you were saying, I was trying to think about other sites that are now putting out local real estate news, but it's still really, you guys are still really the main ones who kind of do it in this way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why we've been successful, is that another site has not come along to kind of do what we do better, I guess. Curbed was here briefly a couple of years.
Did Curb leave? I mean, are they gone now? Because I don't.
They actually were purchased by New York Magazine.
Okay.
And then from my understanding, they now just have a New York site.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, we felt like there was, if we could, produce a lot of content, that there was an opportunity, particularly from the development side of things, which I would say is at least 50% of our content.
Right.
And then, we were doing neighborhood profiles and kind of highlighting individual homes, which became extremely popular.
So just in terms of the journalistic aspect of it, from starting from like zero in this city to do this kind of news, how did you start building the relationships to get these scoops and make sure you had this stuff in a timely manner?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we started out, we were publishing 3 articles a week, and now we're publishing 20 articles a week. And we realized within the first 4 months that we weren't getting the eyeballs with 3 articles a week, nor were we getting any interest from potential advertisers. So what we started doing is essentially just trying to reach out to as many people as we could in the development world. A lot of cold emails, just introducing ourselves and saying, here's what we want to do. And I can't remember the first major scoop that we got, but our first advertiser was, and mind you, this is in 2008 when, we launched in July 2008. The bottom fell out in September 2008.
Right.
And then we didn't have an advertiser for another 3 months after that, but City Vista Condos at 5th and K, the developer from that low needed to sell like 80 units or something. And so they were like, let's just take a flyer on this. And I can't remember, I think it was the Mayhood company who was selling them. So they reached out to us and we started doing, kind of banner ads for them. And then that just begat another and another and another. And then that was kind of.
It's interesting too, because when I think of 2008, it's like conceptually for the internet, it's not even close to the internet of today. Right?
Oh, no.
It's like, it's still pretty fledgling, right?
Well, yeah, and it's interesting to look back on that because, we're still a daily newsletter. That's our primary, avenue to get to our readers. Mm-hmm. And back then, newsletters were kind of novel, and now they kind of seem,
you have to have a newsletter.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you remember your first couple of articles that came out?
Yeah, we were doing and this is like looking back on, when you were in kindergarten or something, but we were doing articles like 5 things you need to know about buying a home in DC. Okay. And we were doing.
It's kind of like us trying to start a podcast. It's like, what are we going to do?
Right.
5 things to start.
And I'm not, right. Yeah. And I'm not saying that article isn't useful today. It obviously is, but we feel like we thought we were being really innovative and being like, this information isn't out there. Right. And now 15 years later, it's everywhere, right? Like you type that in. We were doing a couple of neighborhood profiles. I think we started doing we pick a price point and we say what $550,000 buys you. So I think we were doing that, and those were hugely popular because, mind you, this is also before like the automated Zillows and right. When MLSs were kind of they weren't online, so people were. Or at least they were just coming online. So we felt like we were offering a service of sorts for that.
So in the early days, were you writing some of these articles as well? Or you had a writer?
Yeah, so I was writing. I mean, at the early days, it was me and Will, and actually we had a minority partner named Rocky Vega, and he left after about a year, but I was doing all the writing and Will was doing all the, groundwork to find us advertisers and kind of dealing with like any technical issues that came up with the site.
So, should be noted. So, your wife is a realtor with Compass.
Yes.
And so, how does, I mean, what I was going to ask you about, like how you find out things that you want to write about, and like what your sources are. So, how does having your wife in real estate like help or affect the way that you operate?
Well, I really try and make sure that it doesn't look like there's any influence or favoritism happening.
Yes, just to clarify,
Yeah.
like I'm not what I'm not trying to
What
say
are you
is
trying
like
to get to, Max? What are you trying to ask
it's
here?
like it's not her like secret advertising website that has all this
Yeah.
amazing journalistic content.
Gets all the leads on the back.
I
end.
must note that it feels, I mean, it feels, and it is like a very pure journalistic
Sure.
thing where, and obviously you sell ads and everything,
Yes.
that's the right, it's a website. But no, I'm just just curious because like you're looking for scoops, you're looking for new information. She's obviously a successful realtor.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's what I'm just
Sure. I mean, I think that things will happen. Like I'll want to know a close price for a listing or something like that.
right.
And I'll say, can you look this up for me? But now that was about 3 years ago, I would ask questions like that. But now again,
Get
that
that information
question is everywhere.
Yeah.
So I think it's more, honestly, what happens now with Pam is that I'll write an article and it'll be like 10:30 at night and I'll have read it 3 times or I'll have edited an article and I'll be like, can you read this right quick?
Sure.
But that's kind of the extent of things. And it's interesting because it's not a reciprocal relationship in terms of I really try and keep UrbanTurf business just to myself.
Yeah.
Pam will come home and it's 30 minutes about this deal and 10 minutes
Right.
about this deal.
Right.
We love talking about that. We love.
I mean, the last time Pam and I went out to dinner, she had to bring her laptop and like put it underneath her chair because there was some you
Contract
guys
thing.
know
Yeah.
as well as anybody, there was some
Something
contract
had to
that
be
might
done.
needed to be ratified within like a 45-minute window or something.
It's both like part of the business, but it's also just so embarrassing. You're like, I literally have had this like dinner or show or vacation planned for months, and then you get there and you're on the phone. Like, just that's the life of a realtor, I guess. Right?
Exactly.
So,
I mean, I think vacation is a little bit of a
misnomer.
for you guys.
Yeah. So, how big is the UrbanTurf team right now?
So we have Will and I, and then we have a tech guy who works on a freelance basis, and then Nina Perry Brown, who had been writing for us for 6 years. She just moved on to another chapter in her career actually last week. So we're in the process of finding a new like main writer, and then we have a couple of freelancers. And then we have a director of operations, Mariah Burke-Rains, another local
Yep.
DC native who handles everything from like sales to various administrative stuff. She kind of takes care of everything for us.
So, not obviously, being in journalism, you're not looking at revealing your sources, but I mean, you guys, again, I was just mentioning to you before we started recording that I'm going to record something else after this, and it's going to be down at the wharf. It's sort of like highlighting the wharf. And as I'm like flipping through Instagram, I see you have a new post about all the new stuff that's about to be, I mean, it's either out of the ground or coming to the wharf, but it's in such detail.
Yeah.
So how do you, I mean, you must compile this information constantly. That's must be like the core of your business.
Yeah, I mean, Nina is excellent at compiling that stuff about developments. And then we have a lot of developer contacts that we just reach out to if we want to, fact check it. We have some automated alerts that are set up through the Historic Preservation Office, through DC zoning, through Arlington County's permit database that kind of alert us when a new development is filed. And then as far as individual properties, like, our audience loves if a, $30 million house in McLean hits the market.
Sure.
Or, a huge house in Calorama hits the market. So we have a certain threshold for getting alert that, will tell us when a $9 plus million house hits the market, and then we kind of go through covering that. But aside from that, it's, we got a lot of people emailing us being like, have you heard about this? And then we kind of just dig into it. So I would say it's a variety of things.
Yeah.
So when you're first starting out, going back to the early days, how are you getting Urban Turf out to the consumer? Like, are you guys advertising on other websites, or how is the consumer getting to you?
We had a relationship with a company called dclofts.com, and he had bought the domain name and essentially put a bunch of new condo developments in it. And so it was kind of a place, again, really early days of that type of thing, where people could just go and look and see new condo developments. And we said, would you be up for having some type of reciprocal relationship whereby, you kind of promote us, and then you feature some of our articles, and we'll give you a little free advertising. And it was various things like that kind of started getting the word out there. But I would say that it wasn't until we started publishing 5 days a week, and I think once our newsletter, our subscribers hit 5,000, which took at least a year, then it started really taking off after that. I think it was a lot of word of mouth.
That's a lot of subscribers in 1 year.
That's what I was going to say. It's pretty good growth.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that those were just really I think we, again, really benefited from there not being really another thing like us. Like Washington Post real estate section that came out on Sunday.
Yeah.
Washington Business Journal, they weren't doing a ton of residential stuff at that time. And then there wasn't really anything else.
Yeah, like I said, that's pretty much still the way it is right now. I mean, yeah, occasionally I'll look at the Business Journal in their residential section, but it's limited. It's
Right.
not, and it's not as I mean, there's news there, but it's not quite what I'm hoping for.
No, it's
sometimes,
usually you're looking at the whatever the back page is to see maybe some of those off-market deals that we never saw.
Sure.
in the
Exactly.
MLS, like what traded into who and for how much.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why I go to the Business Journal. So it's like you have your own little monopoly there.
Right.
You're able to play with.
I would say Washingtonian also, I like their real estate section a lot. I think it's the edgiest thing that a traditional publication is doing in DC. And then City Paper had Housing Complex, but again, that was a different kind of
I'm really glad you brought that up. That is another. These are the things of DC people like us, like the things of our past, right? I mean, the City Paper still exists. It's different now. But yeah, Housing Complex, and of course everything else about the City Paper. That was one of my main go-to things.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the City Paper used to be what I picked up in high school
every Thursday.
Yeah.
Explain the City Paper for someone that's not a DC native here.
City Paper was a local publication, weekly publication. Mainly, I'm sure you're the same way. I went on there to check out the concert listings. Like 100% had to see who's coming to the 930 Club or Black Cat or whatever. And when were tickets going on sale for like AC/DC at the US Air or whatever. And so and then in there was a column called Housing Complex, and Housing Complex was more related to I guess it had a political sort of angle to it in a lot of cases. But during the course of this era that we're discussing, let's just say like from maybe the early 2000s to sort of where we are now in this market is like 2011 on, all of that kind of stuff was extremely important. The discussion of topics like gentrification, topics of zoning and permitting, but the way it was written was there was a lot of news there, and they've covered some stuff really well in depth. But the market and the world has expanded so much in the city now, and plus the City Paper sort of was going out of business and they needed to revamp, and it was purchased by Mark Hine.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, that was just like a little. There you go. There's a tangent for our
I've got another
listeners.
not a tangent, but just a curious question. You used to go down to the Metro and they'd give you those free papers. Are those still around?
That was the Express, right?
The Express.
Yeah, that's gone too. I think.
Gone.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember City Paper was at any local establishment that you went to.
Right.
It had like a little crate there, and
they're
picked it
free.
up.
Yeah.
I know Capitol Hill has one. They have Hill Rag.
Exactly.
Sure.
And that's still around. I think.
Still around.
Yeah.
Yeah, City Paper, man. That's
I
some memories.
Max is absolutely right, though. That was like the concert flyer. Like, if you wanted to find out who was coming over the next 2 months, that's where you went. And it's crazy now. Obviously, you go online, But back then, I remember going. I was like, I want to go to this. I want to go to this. I want to go to this.
Yep.
Have you guys ever thought about doing a publication as far as like a hard copy of something?
I think we considered doing something that kind of was like a new condo directory that would be more of an advertising product. But then the cost of doing
So
that
expensive.
compared to the value you would get out of it, we didn't really see that it was.
That's
there.
where you hit us agents up. It's like the phone book. It's like, hey, we're going to do this fancy book, and it's going to cost you $5,000 to be on the front of the magazine of the book.
Right. Exactly.
Well, in general though, that's journalism now anyway. Like I'm always wondering at what point Washington Post, New York Times, like the paper ends, because
It doesn't. We keep paying them money to like say how great we are as agents.
well, what I'm saying is like literally the actual publication, the paper itself in circulation, because it's expensive. There's transportation costs. There's all kinds of resources that go into that, and I mean, how many people are still getting these like written
I am.
publications? You still get a
I
written?
read the New York Times every morning. I get to the gym 5:30, and I'll sit there. I don't have a high intensity
I'm just
workout like
picturing
you on the Peloton.
I'm just picturing you in the locker room,
Yeah.
just like sitting back, like in your underwear, with
Yeah.
like the New York Times
on the couch. Like, yeah, I went to the gym today.
Good morning, Brent. Like that's
Yes,
it right there.
That's me.
Well, can I ask you guys a question? Like, I mean, Washingtonian comes to mind as one place that just seems like a required ad buy for you guys.
They kind of push it that way. Yeah.
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 But I think there's real value for that. I mean, I know that at a certain age demographic, people are still at home getting the Washingtonian, reading it, flipping through it, and so to be visible in there, it seems like it's a worthwhile money spend.
We do. I think we advertise in a couple of different glossy magazines. The one that we always struggle with, I think it's the Washingtonian Best of.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming like it's
Like
like
how
that
much-
across the
how
board.
much
It's
to
like, oh,
advertise
it's like $10,000. You can be the best agent. I'm like, then there's 50 of our top competitors in there, and then
Yeah.
the ones that didn't get in there, they explain on social media why they didn't get in there. They didn't pay for the ad. They have something else coming out. I mean, it's a whole game. We discuss it every single year. It's like they hit us up for the money, and like, do we do it? Do we not do it? If we're not in it, people don't think we're successful. It's like,
But it is true. I think that maybe at some point, all of the brokers will collude and say we're done with this, because we're forking out. I don't even know how much Compass forks out for
that spread. That's a nice spread.
The first time they did that spread, for our listeners, this is a couple of years ago. Compass did a spread that was probably 50 pages in the Washingtonian, and it was really well done too. It was very personal, and the photographs of the agents were like doing things that were sort of candid. It wasn't the typical like headshot, right? So and after that, I think that everyone else was like, oh, we need to step up our Washingtonian game for the best of, and it's just, and then the Washingtonian's like, yes,
right.
But that's fine. It's fine. Like, I'm just saying, like, it's a lot of advertising dollars that go in that direction.
is.
That's true.
Yeah. I mean, the whole goal, right, is that you want to be reading the magazine, and then you want to be reading something, and before you know it, you're reading an ad, but you don't realize it, right?
Of course.
So I just feel like that's probably what Compass was thinking the entire time, right?
Absolutely. It's advertorial.
Advertorial. That's what I was trying to think of the term. It's advertorial.
We know that term very well.
Yep. So UrbanTurf, when I think of UrbanTurf, I think of it as being, it's pretty straightforward. I can go to UrbanTurf, I can get the daily article or the links that you guys post, which is also extremely helpful. It's another thing that important to point out. That's one of your products there, is that you consolidate other links from other publications. So again, it's a sort of one-stop shop if you're a DC realtor to
or
gather.
Consumer. I mean, it's
Or
great
the
for
consumer to gather real estate news. So in this age of like, obviously media has expanded to beyond essential journalism stuff, beyond news media, and everything is sort of heading in this direction of Instagram, TikTok being more viral. What do you see as like the future of UrbanTurf with regards to any of those kinds of things?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we use Twitter a lot. We use Instagram more and more these days. TikTok is one of those things, Max, as you well know, that I personally have a little bit difficulty figuring out how UrbanTurf would play into that. It's so much.
I mean, I can already think of how it would work, but go ahead. Just keep
There's so much video that, like, TikTok is video, and our our platform is currently 0 video. So I think we would have to figure out how that would work. I think that we would like to try and increase the frequency of what we do about 4 articles a day, including that link roundup.
Right.
And I think that if we could increase our frequency, I think that would bring more eyeballs. But the world of social media is one that, something new comes along, every couple of years, and publications like mine try and figure out how to utilize it. And I think we have figured that out with Twitter and Instagram, but not necessarily with TikTok. But just more to your question, I think that local media is tough. Media in general is tough. Local media is tough. And I think that right now we have something good going. So I think that for now we're just going to kind of, keeping on.
Right. So yeah, you mentioned the idea of doing something like this in New York, but before you started here, that it was a saturated market, and you're like, I don't know how we get our foot in the door. But any thoughts about like expanding to other? I mean, look, the real estate market's changed a lot too in recent years, and even the last couple of years. Like some of our secondary, quote unquote, secondary markets have gotten really popular.
Sure.
And obviously, I'm sure there's other things going on in those cities that I have no idea about. But have you ever thought about like shifting to some of these other smaller markets that?
Well, yeah, the pandemic, it makes that interesting because, as you pointed out, New York, San Francisco, DC are not necessarily the only destinations for, say, young grads anymore. So the idea of going to like, a Charlotte or an Austin or
Richmond, Virginia.
Exactly. Yeah. But, UrbanTurf kind of needs like a special combination of things in order to move to a new market. You have to have there shouldn't be really anything else like us there. You have to have a pretty thriving new construction industry, because that's where a lot of our advertising dollars come from. So I think it's something we would consider. We attempted to go to Chicago back in 2012, and we realized that the amount of work that we put into UrbanTurf DC, we would have to put in that same amount in Chicago and every market going forward.
Yeah. So obviously, you are getting all this information about what's happening, the newest locations, or if you've got alerts set for permitting and zoning and all of these things, you're probably getting an early read, right, on some things. How have you been involved in any development yourself, or like have you used this knowledge as power in
insider
your
knowledge?
Business? Yeah.
I mean, the short answer is no, and I really just always thought that I should, from a journalistic perspective, I was like, let's just stay on the journalism front. But if I were to just toss out the ethical aspect of things, I really should have got in the door back in 2009. I mean, there was so much going on. Cass Riegler, who was a local developer, and I'm friends with them outside of it. I remember having a meeting with them in 2010, and we were sitting on 14th Street at the Busboys and Poets, and they were like, everything east of here is really going to take off. And I was like,
oh, okay.
Huh, okay. And of course it did. But yeah, I mean, the short answer is no. I mean, we, outside of like some small real estate investments through through Pam and I, we haven't gotten into the development world.
It's very interesting because our first project was, I think, 2010 with Kevin and Adam.
Oh, really?
We sold their, I can't remember the address. It was
on
Harvard Street.
Yeah.
We knocked it out of the park, but those two guys, they're genius, and they still have a footprint on some of the stuff they're trying to accomplish and acquire throughout the DMV, but it's impressive.
It is, yeah.
Who's
Kevin Riegler came from, he's a local guy too.
Absolutely, yeah.
And he was under Monty Hoffman for a while, so he has that mindset. And Adam Stiefel is from, I think it's Adam Stiefel.
Adam Stiefel's from Bethesda, or I think he's from Montgomery County. Yeah, those guys were great. And I mean, Kevin, like both of them were just really gung-ho about, breaking off from the developers they were working with to start their own thing. And several people did that afterwards, but I really felt like they were two of the guys that did that first.
Interesting.
Well, I would say like I understand what you're saying, and I feel your pain. Brent's been way better at this. Brent knows
I've
how to buy
gotten
and sell
lucky.
some real estate.
Yeah, I've been lucky because we have places in New York, Florida, West Virginia, and it is a lot about luck. So we bought in West Virginia and at the Greenbrier.
Mhm.
We bought at the bottom of the market, and the secondary markets across the country are
Yeah.
just on fire right now. So we
Yes,
sold
Kind
it
of unexpected.
in January, got good money. We bought in 2008 a few places down in South Florida, down in Miami. Foreclosures, we did extremely well down there, and a couple places up in Manhattan. So it's a lot of luck. Just
Yeah.
buying smart.
Yeah. I mean, we own our condo on Logan. I live up in Upper Northwest now, but we own our condo on our street now, and I think that that's just the like luckiest I will ever get from a real estate investment. And obviously, it's done well. We still own it, but yeah, I mean, again, we should have, expanded our
Are
portfolio.
there any discussions about selling? Because sometimes, me as an agent, I just want to sell. Like I want to buy it and sell. Like I can't hold on to stuff for too long. So is there any discussions between you and Pam about we should unload Logan and go buy somewhere else?
All the time, all the time, and they're usually one way, which is Pam saying that we should sell this, because once Pam gets done with the DC real estate market, like 8 to 10:30 is like looking in Eastern Maryland, or just looking for the vacation home. She grew up on the Hill, and her parents have had a series of homes they fixed up in Maryland and now Rhode Island, and so Pam has that bug.
They still have a place up in Rhode Island?
Yeah, they have a place in a small community about 5 minutes from the Providence airport.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I have an existential question that might be complicated to answer. So you're from DC, your wife's from DC, I am from DC, and yet we all still live here. Like, do you ever have these moments where you're driving down I'm just telling you this because this happens to me all the time now. Okay.
Yeah.
You're driving down Mass Avenue, you're driving down the street, you're walking down in Georgetown, and you're like, how much longer am I going to be doing this?
Oh, I mean, just for perspective, I grew up in DC. I went away to Colorado. I moved to New York. I came back to DC, but then I didn't want to live where I grew up. I'm living now where I grew up. My life has fully come, what is it, 360, 180?
Yeah, right.
So I think initially I thought about that, but I have a lot of friends from DC that came back here. And I think if you went to high school actually in DC proper, or did all your schooling in DC proper around the time that we were there, you have a pretty strong bond with those friends and the city.
Yeah.
So I would say the times that I'm now thinking about the fact that I still live here and I think it's weird, those are few and far between compared to when I was back here in 2010.
Yeah. Yeah, just I was looking at some photographs of myself in high school, which is always scary anyway when you see your younger self. You're like, oh my God. But walking down in Georgetown, like after going shopping, and
Totally.
it's from like the mid 90s, and I'm
Mhm.
like, this could have been. It's just, I don't know. It's bizarre. It's bizarre.
Well, and also all these places that are now closing. Commander Salamander closed for a long time.
Oh yeah.
The Uptown Theater closed. Like I just, if you were from this area,
Yeah.
it hits your heart a little harder.
Yeah. And it's the way things are. I mean, if we had been here 50 years before that, we would have thought the same thing about any other random thing that had
Exactly.
closed. I
Yeah.
know.
Can you go back and is there anything different that you would do? Like starting a business from the ground up, just as a business owner, whether you're in real estate or something else, are there any like missteps you could have done something differently?
I think we've had, me in particular, has had a hard time delegating a lot of the editorial work. I think that I would have delegated it more and been less of a micromanager, and I still should be. But I really want to put out a good product, and I also think that I would have ramped up the frequency with which we published sooner than we were being 18 months into the game and realizing that was never going to work. But by and large, I think that we've done a good job. We really pride ourselves on making sure that we're the first people out with a story And if another publication comes along and has already done that story, we kind of decide that we're not going to do it, because what we really want UrbanTurf to be, and it seems like it is for you guys, is the place to go for your residential real estate news, be it development or properties or et cetera. So I think that, in terms of scoops, in terms of stuff like that, I really pride myself on us making sure that we're the only game in town, so to speak, that has a certain story.
You still doing some writing?
Yeah, I do probably, out of the 20 articles a week, I probably still do 3 or so. I like writing about like the really opulent luxury listings. Full disclosure, even though we don't disclose this in most of our articles, I really like figuring out who's purchasing these properties that are now selling for 35 million plus in McLean.
Yes.
Doing that sleuth work.
Yeah. I mean, we just had a pretty big story about who has been buying up Chainbridge Road, and we're pretty sure we know who it is, but it took 2 weeks of looking into it. And I love that. I was fascinated by that.
So that would be a story that you would push out to the consumer? Or is that like too much TMZ? You don't want to be, backlash?
I mean,
Gets eyeballs.
Yes.
it gets eyeballs. I think people are generally interested, whether or not you're in the profession or you're a consumer. I think people like knowing about, to put it bluntly, who lives in really big houses in this city and the area.
I do. I mean, not to live in a big house, but I'd like to know who lives in the big house.
Exactly. Yeah.
No,
To
of course.
clarify.
Of course. But it's funny. So you were just talking about, you were listening to the episode of Smart List, this week's Smart List with David
Yes.
Spade, and
Yeah.
talking about celebrity. He was talking about meeting with realtors because he wanted to sell his house, and they come over and they're like, we're going to have to stage this place. And he's like, what are you talking about? There's furniture. You're like, no, we need to clean it up and make it. I mean, real estate's totally different now. And then, once it's sold, it's on every, like the Real Deal. We're talking about all those other different websites, and it's like it's celebrity news. It's the hottest thing, and then it's real estate related. So I mean, you got to take part in that.
His was funny because he also mentioned he took offense because I think the agent told him he's living in a teardown. He's like, what do you mean
Yeah,
it's a teardown? I'm
this is
sitting on the
definitely a
couch
teardown.
watching TV. He's like, no, someone's going to come in here, bulldoze your house, and build like a $50 million house out in LA. So I mean, he's very funny.
That was a funny one.
That's great. Such a great, I mean, in answer to this podcast, what podcast are you listening to? It was between that and another one. Smart List is so good. And they were just in DC, right?
Yeah, I saw him.
Oh, you saw
you
that?
did?
Yeah, Will Ferrell was there.
Oh, Will Ferrell's
that was their
That was
guest.
that one.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So you saw Will Ferrell and all those guys.
Yeah. I mean, I feel very fortunate that the
Wow.
guest was Will Ferrell, because when people come to DC, it's like, oh, they're going to bring some politician out,
Right.
someone I just absolutely don't
Mhm.
want to see. And they brought Will Ferrell out. I'm like, oh, they went big.
Yeah,
There's
they
Wolf
did.
Blitzer. Come on out.
Yeah. Thank you. Exactly. That's how you expect. I had another quick question. So again, with your ears to the ground on a lot of this development stuff, and I'm also thinking about how housing complexes used to put their stuff together. We talk to developers a lot and other realtors, and one of the things, the topics we've been talking about lately is how ridiculous it is to deal with DCRA and zoning in DC. And you must hear about all this kind of stuff too. So I wonder, what are your thoughts on that? Do you have any editorial opinion on that? Because you have a lot of knowledge about what's going on with permitting and everything.
Yeah, to not get too into my own opinion about it, I mean, DCRA it's well documented that it's been a difficult agency to deal with for years now, even though they regularly say that they are, improving both the usage of the site as well as the transparency of the agency. I mean, DC's in this interesting place, right? Because you have the mayor who's putting out this goal of building 36,000 houses by, I guess it's 2025, so 3 years from now. But then on the flip side of that, you have all the agencies and obstacles that you just existed that, are hindering developers from building. So I would say that I hear the same things that you're hearing on a very regular basis. There's only so much we can write about that, because it's like there's only so much you can write about the fact that, there's a low inventory of homes for sale.
Sure.
but we're certainly hearing the same things you are. And I was actually at a thing that the mayor was at about 3 weeks ago, and at least 2 people, probably who were developers, spoke up and said, it's getting increasingly difficult to build in this city.
Right.
And
all I hear.
if it stays that way, we're going to go
out.
someplace else.
Yeah. This is exactly what we were talking about with like Lindsay Reichman and
It's difficult. And
Yeah.
a lot of them have gone to, not a lot, but I know a handful that's gone down to North Carolina.
Yep.
Where land is not an issue and restrictions and historics and things like that are not in play.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, Mark, we really enjoy your time, and thank you so much for coming out here and talking to us and talking about UrbanTurf. Again, we really thank you for doing this publication. Obviously, we know it's your business and your livelihood as well, but it is fantastic, and we're on there. That's our resource. I mean, I'm literally about to go like carry this like article with me to this next recording. And I mean, that's all the information I could possibly need about what's going on at the wharf. And it's like, boom, it's on your website. It's incredible.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having me. It's really great. I love the podcast.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
So we're going to hit you with some rapid fire questions right now.
Okay.
Rapid
Yeah.
5. What is your guilty pleasure?
Sports gambling.
Sports game.
I used to do a lot of that.
You go with like FanDuel?
I go with a less advertised
It's all good.
option.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me think about this, because this is interesting. I used to have this same affliction. We'll just call it that, right? Because we'll call it a guilty pleasure. But it was all before everything was like legal.
Right.
And now that it's legal, I'm not going to the sports book or anything. So it's just
Do it on the app.
Yeah, I mean, DC has an app now. I use an app. Yeah, it's everywhere, and it's so much more accepted, than it used to be.
yeah. I mean, it's advertised everywhere you look. Is there a stadium named after one of the betting sites? I don't. I mean,
Exactly.
I'm
Probably,
sure.
yeah.
You have crypto.com as the state. Well, it used to be
former
the
Staples
Lakers.
Center, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, do you have a sport that you like to gamble on?
Weirdly, golf.
Wow.
Yeah, it used to be basketball and football. But golf betting has taken off tremendously over the last 4 years. And because you can just get huge odds on it.
So you pick like one golfer?
We pick I do it with my brother, and we pick 8 for a tournament, and then the payout can be exponentially more if one of those hits.
It's a whole
Couple
math thing.
things. Do you think? I'll come back to that. But do you think Tiger Woods will play in the Masters?
Oh gosh, this is so nerdy. I saw something on Twitter yesterday that was called Celebrity Jets, and it showed Tiger's plane landing at Augusta. And the word is that he's going to do a couple practice rounds and see if he can go. I would be very surprised if he does not play. I was at the Masters in 2019 when he won, and it was
Nice.
unbelievable.
You were at that.
I was there, yeah.
Wow, that's like to me, it's the most memorable sports event in my lifetime.
Yeah, it was
Watching him
incredible.
win
Masters tickets are incredibly difficult to get, and I had a friend who had them through his family, so we went. But yeah, golf betting is what I'm doing now. Gosh, if any of my friends listen to this,
They're gonna listen.
they are gonna listen. I'm
I can't wait.
gonna tell them to.
I love it. Good.
Outside of UrbanTurf, what do you like to read? Book, magazine?
I
newspaper?
just finished a book called Anxious People, which is the plot line, fittingly, is a guy robs a bank, and then it runs across the street and runs into an open house, and he takes all the members of the open house hostage, and all their
It's not a true
anxieties.
I don't know if I
story,
wanna
is
read
it?
this.
Yeah.
All of their anxieties come out over the course of the book. It's really good. Netflix is going to make it into a series apparently, but that was a really good book.
Wow. A little scary.
Sounds like my
doing
worst,
open
that's
houses.
literally my worst
someday.
nightmare.
At least I don't think there's any banks that are close by. Favorite vacation spot?
Probably Mexico or Italy.
Mexico or Italy? Those
All
are
right, those are good ones.
favorite hobby.
I already said sports gambling.
Do you golf? You like to watch it or
I
gamble?
started golfing about 18 months ago, and I'm not very good. I coach my son's baseball team, and as far as that can be a hobby, I really like doing that.
Nice.
Is he on one of those like teams that travel all around?
No, he's well, I used to coach my 8-year-olds team. Now I'm coaching my 5-year-olds team. So we're really just trying to get the ball to
Yeah,
get
is it
out of
still
the
T-ball?
infield. They moved. Yeah, they changed the rules, so it used to be coach pitch, but now it's back to T-ball.
Okay.
just trying to get him to run to the right base. I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Other base.
Yeah.
My son played baseball for like one season. We called it quits because he'd be out there like chasing a butterfly,
Totally.
or, kicking dirt, and not even
Yeah.
paying attention.
Yeah,
So,
we have a bunch of dirt diggers on our team.
so we stuck with tennis, and now he's playing basketball. We always like to ask this question. And you've got some inside knowledge here, but do you have any predictions for the rest of 22
For the housing market.
for the housing market?
Yeah, I actually am going to probably go against conventional wisdom, and I think inventory is really going to come back about starting around late May.
Wow.
I think that people are going to put their houses on the market thinking they can get a high price, and then that is going to combine with a kind of drop in buyer demand when like interest rates hit 5%.
You heard
Very
it here first.
You heard it
Someone
here first.
predicted a rise in inventory for 2022.
Yeah. I mean, we can't.
I would-
We can't put out another newsletter with a headline that there are no homes for sale in DC. People are going to be like, "Come on, man."
So no, that's a
gotta
good
get new
point.
content.
So you put that headline out, and then it'll be like, predictions that housing inventory will rise.
Market's going to crash.
Yeah, and it'll be like UrbanTurf will be on my like Google homepage immediately because
Yeah.
that's how it works, man.
Yes.
I think predictions for the housing market, though, you start reading them for like the fall or the spring, and you're kind of reading the same thing at different publications. So part of me just wants to have a different take.
Because it's just a prediction,
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you can base it on whatever you want and take the data and go either way, pretty much.
What does Cowherd say? A prediction's sure to go wrong.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, again, fully appreciate you coming on here today, taking time out of your schedule to visit with us, and thank you, and keep it up, and we'll be reading always, man.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. This was
Do you
great.
guys have, or do you have a charity of your donation? Or Max, you want to ask that question next time?
We always give a donation to the charity of our guest choice.
Oh,
So,
really?
Yes. So if you have a charity,
N
name it.
Street Village.
N Street
N Street
Village, yeah.
Village.
Are you familiar?
Oh yeah, I give a
Yeah.
lot of money to N Street Village. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, love what N Street Village does. So that's where I would send the money.
You got it. We'll
Thank
do.
you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks a lot.
This was great.
Thanks for listening to Keyed In with your hosts, Max and Brent, unlocking the minds of the industry's top real estate professionals. For more information on selling your home, find us online at keyedinpodcast.com. Remember to subscribe to Keyed In on Apple Podcasts or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Keyed In Podcast, at Rabin Max, and at Brent E. Jackson. And follow Max on TikTok at MaxwellRabin_properties.